Welcome to the Story Tinker podcast, a place for in-depth analysis of Webtoon stories. Co-hosted by sharp, witty, and dare I say, thirsty fans, we dive deep into every episode, analyzing character struggles, relationship development, and of course, theories. You can follow the Story Tinker on YouTube, podcast platforms, and social media. For bonus content, sneak peeks, and more, you can support the Story Tinker on Patreon. We are really appreciative of your likes, subscribes, and follows on all platforms. Thank you for listening to the Story Tinker, and let's get started.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to a special episode of the Story Tinker. And today we're here with Meg.
Hi!
And I'm excited to rejoin Meg. But today we are doing something different. Instead of doing our typical episode analysis, we are doing an overall discussion of a new story. And it's called Act Like You Love Me. And it's by 𝗥𝗲𝗃𝗃. I don't know how to pronounce that. And yeah, it's interesting, it's different. So I guess my first question is, let's before we dive in, what got you into it when you first started?
Believe it or not, it was you. You mentioned it. It was on your reading list because we were talking about, Webtoons that we read. So I decided to check it out. And what really drew me in was the main character. She's not your super mainstream female lead for these kind of stories. And the humor, it killed me. I laughed every time.
Yeah, same, literally the same thing. So yeah, let's do a summary and then we'll discuss the main character because there's so many reasons why I love her. So basically main character, but before we started this, we looked up how to pronounce all the names and we're gonna butcher them, so I'm sorry. So the main character is, I think, Ji-eon, and she is a poor person. She's not even a student. There are other Webtoons with poor students, but she's not. She is just a person who is working 3 jobs. She works at a fast food restaurant, a chicken restaurant, and then a convenience store. And she sends all her money to her mom. She wants to save up money to buy a house so she and her mom can live together. We find out later in the story, her dad apparently left them. And there's a very interesting dynamic with her mom, which I want to discuss. But summary, she gets this doll called Mingji, and turns out Mingji controls this guy, this actor, Doyun Nam. And Doyun is someone that she would resent because he was on the face of Dear Apartments, and she would watch these ads to earn 30 cents because she's that poor. And it ends up her and his life intertwined. She has this doll that controls him. He has his own issues, which we'll discuss. And the story is about, well, we'll see, but basically the story is about them coming together, maybe yes, maybe not. And then there's all these side characters. There's her friend, this guy that shows up at the convenience store, who we'll call taiyun for now. And then there's Doyun's drama and that, but that's basically the story.
If I was to label it, it would definitely be comedy drama. And that's just so many things that happen that would totally never happen in real life, but it just makes for so many hilarious situations. That's why we read these sort of things. So
it's the best. Yeah, I also literally laugh out loud. So yeah, what's your opinion about our main character, Ji-eon?
So when I first read her, you walk a fine line with these characters when you want to write them as, not the norm. They don't get flustered easy or things that typically fluster leads, like the near proximity of a male drives them she doesn't do that. But then also I find that a lot of these Webtoons that try to make a different character like that sometimes make their characters unnecessarily aggressive, which is what I was afraid of when I read her character. And she does have moments where I feel like she's kind of leaning that way, but I feel like it's just her moments of deciding she's not going to be a pushover, which I really appreciate. That is, it's not so much that she's coming across arrogant, she just comes across independent, which I personally enjoy.
I love that you said that. You're right. She isn't a character who, as soon as a male is next to her, will just go ballistic. That is true. She treats them like they're people, and she doesn't get overwhelmed by them. And for me, the first thing that really drew me in right away was the fact that she worked her butt off. And there was a time when I was also working. I think she worked more hours than me because she came home 6:40 and she had another job at 10:40, so she had 4 hours of sleep. So there were times I had 4 hours of sleep, but basically it reminded me of the time where I was working 3 jobs, and I was just thank you, because money has always been a very big issue for me. And I like to see reality portrayed in Webtoon because I think that to ignore such a big part of people's lives is to ignore a giant part of people's lives. So I really appreciate when money struggles are put into Webtoons. And I love the fact that she was just working and she's like, I'm just going to do this. And she constantly is very optimistic about that. Like there's a time when she walks past these college students who are studying and she has a little bit of jealousy and she's, wishing that she could have that life. But then she tells herself, oh no, don't worry. Like they're also working hard. You're working hard. Don't be jealous of other people. Like you each have your own lot in life. And I was so impressed with that maturity.
She has a self-awareness that we typically don't see out of these type of female leads, and it's refreshing. It makes for a more enjoyable lead. And that leads us to the male lead number 1.
Yes. Doyun. So what do you think of him?
Okay. Upon first impression, I was just laughing at him. Like it was hard not to, but I also felt for him a little bit because that anxiety definitely came through with the people situations, and anxiety is something I've struggled with like my whole life. And so I relate very well to that, but then I also appreciate, and this, I love in this Webtoon, we have a narrator that is very self-aware about their characters. And there's a block, and I should have screenshotted it, but there's a block that literally says, Doyun never grew up. He's still literally a child.
Yes. Yeah. I think the manager actually says that. I think that himself. I think.
Yeah, and then it's in a narrating block too, because I remember looking at it and kind of laughing that the narrator was coming out and letting us know that yes, he is as immature as you think he is.
Yeah. I think the text was he had to grow up so fast, so his mind is still childish.
Yeah,
which is such an important point about child actors. Anyone who's pushed into the limelight at a young age. I mean, I don't know this firsthand, but like. This is something that a lot of people say, that this is what happens when you push children into things that are too big for them. They are basically like they regress at some point and like they never get a chance to properly mature. And yeah, I totally see it in Doyun. Like in many ways, he is very childish.
Yeah, but he still manages as high maintenance as he is. He still manages to be very lovable. I still manage to sympathize with him. And while he might not be like the healthiest romantic pairing for Ji-eon, I still really enjoy having him in the story. I enjoy his inner conflict over, oh my goodness, I'm crushing on this girl. And he's kind of got a big head on his shoulders and like the disbelief that she's not fawning over him.
Yes, which is good for him. And okay, so I love the thing I love most about Doyun is unlike a lot of male leads, he's not at all anywhere near perfect. A lot of the times, like the male lead is the strong one, the capable one, the one that rescues the girl. And he is like, he has, like you said, anxiety, he suffers from panic attacks, he's immature, he is not so self-aware, he's very distrustful of people, he thinks everyone's out to use him for his money or his looks. Yes. And he's a lot of development to go through. But yeah, I love him. I think he's so endearing. And yes. I love that he's not perfect. And I like that he struggles with mental health things. And it's nice to see that. And like, it's a major part of the story. And I just love to see that he's vulnerable.
Yeah. And honestly, I mean, if I'm going to talk about my favorite chapter, it would totally be the cockroach chapter. And with both of them, that, oh my goodness, I was rereading again in prepping for this, and I had to read it again because I was still laughing so hard. And I love that they censored the cockroach. Yes. Just like a little blurred dot.
It was very, very funny.
But I think that's the peak of those two as a duo. And I'm hoping that this story will go in the direction of them becoming like supporting friends. Because in that chapter, that's what I saw. I never saw a romantic pairing. I saw two idiots who were sharing a brain cell over a stupid cockroach.
It was hilarious. That was great. I felt so bad for him. I was like his bare hands, why are you doing this to him?
I had no sympathy for him. She's like, get cockroach, and he can't say no. Minji is,
The poor guy. Poor guy. So let's talk about the second lead. So the second lead is this guy, Sayin, right? We're introduced to him as Sayin. he is a weirdo, like flat out, who shows up at her convenience store. He rescues her from, she's about to be hit by an aggressive customer, and he obliquely rescues her without kind of like showing that he is, either because he's spaced out or because he's trying to preserve her dignity. I don't know what he, it was a very interesting interaction. Like, I don't know if he is just like a very weird person and that's why it just was weird.
Yeah. I think the whole fandom collectively refers to him as eye bags.
Right, eye bags. That's what
that's why I'm like, oh, man, doesn't sleep.
Yeah, so she assumes he's like homeless basically before, because he baggy clothes, he bags under his eyes, he comes in like in the middle of the night, and yeah, it's weird. I think that's a contributing factor. And first of all, she's still nice to him. Like, she's very unjudgmental. Like, Ji-eon is not judgmental of Doyun's anxiety. She's not judgmental of like the fact that she thinks he's unemployed and like, you know, saying he's unemployed. Anyway, he hangs around and he's like, I want to be your friend. He's very awkward. He does not know how to
no social skills whatsoever.
Yeah. And then we find out, why don't you go say what we find out basically?
Oh man, how much are we allowed to spoil? Like, should we not spoil? Should we?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if people who are watching it are like, oh, let me see what this webtoon is about, or like I love this webtoon.
We should talk about the twists.
We should not talk about the twists?
Yeah, we should not talk about the twists.
Okay, fine.
Or maybe just people get interested. There are a couple twists in this webtoon that you are not suspecting, coincidences that could only happen on such a webtoon or a K-drama into that. So
yeah, it's a total rom-com. Like, when I read this, I was like, this is rom-com, and my favorite genre of movie is rom-com. Like, I love it. I love this kind of like, yeah, where things are like not very credible, where everyone's connected, but it's like, I love it. It's great. And
yeah, escapism. It's what we watch it for.
Yeah, so
my first impressions with this guy, and upon second reading, I did not get these exact same vibes, but when I first read it, I was kind of like creeped out by him. He didn't give me like a great feeling, especially when I think it was his second interaction with her, and she suspected that he was buying alcohol for young girls outside of the shop.
Right.
And then instead of giving it to them, he just stands in front of them and just like chugs the whole thing.
He's about to throw up on them.
Yeah. And then upon second reading, I realized, okay, this guy literally has no social skills. But the way he kind of like pursued their friendship by kind of like stalking her a little bit, and then insisted that they be friends. And then once they had enough interaction, he's like, cool, we're friends now. There's a fine line between being socially awkward and then being creep. And upon first reading, I got more creep vibes. And upon second reading, I got more of the socially awkward vibes. So I still don't know where that's going to go, but I like to think that he's genuine. I hope he's genuine. And she seems to really like him. She wasn't creeped out. She was more like, oh, I've got a friend.
Yeah. So that is that's what clued me in. But also for me, I think like it's just the genre itself. I feel like the webtoon portrayed him as a likable guy, and the villains are pretty clear. Like we'll talk about the villains in a second, but I feel like the villains are very, very clearly portrayed. And I know that like in a different kind of webtoon, it could be that Satan would be portrayed as like, you know, he could have his psychological issues that could end up in a tragedy, but I think this is too lighthearted for that to happen. Like, I don't think this is this kind of story.
Yeah.
So that's what makes me think he's just a goofy guy.
Yeah. And I'm probably reading into it. And I know that there is certain interactions, there is a bit of a cultural difference there that, you know, things that are, you know, just tropes over there that I don't understand as tropes in like Western culture. So I understand that there might be a little bit of a disconnect there. So I'm willing to cross my fingers and hope he is completely genuine. I don't know why he would be trying to manipulate a midnight cashier. I don't think he's out for anything. But at this point, I am still a little skeptical of his character just because I don't understand his intentions with either Ji-eon or Doyun. I don't know what he's going for here. We haven't read too far into how they interact with each other yet. And I think once all parties realize that they know each other, it's going to be fun. But
there's that love triangle, there's the jealousy.
Yeah, and then
there's already a disturbing relationship between Satan / whatever secret identity and Doyun. So
I think I don't think Doyun is going to handle it well. I mean, we know how mature he is, so
He doesn't handle anything well. Yeah.
So I have mixed feelings on him, but I feel like we should move to the villain now.
Yes. Okay, so there's the main villain is Hyun-soo. We just looked up how to pronounce this. So Hyun-soo is an actor who's 6 years older than Doyun. So he's 30, no, he's 7, I think. I think he's 36 and Doyun is 29, as far as I understand. Ji-eon is 25. And he basically wants to take down Doyun. He just signed on to the same agency as Doyun, which this agency was created just with Doyun. Basically, the guy used to be his like road manager, and now he became the CEO of this agency, which is basically built around Doyun. And he wants to take him down. Now, we don't know why. What are your theories?
Well, that's, I think, one of the themes, if we're going to slowly transition to that, is that the entertainment industry can be a very toxic, backstabbing industry. And there might be a genuine reason for his dislike of Doyun, but I don't know if it's that well-founded. The only history that we have is that they were in their early careers, they worked together a good bit. So we saw that, that one film that they were in together. And then we know that it sounds like they were at separate agencies, and then now they're both at this smaller agency together and kind of like competing with each other now. But even before that competition, it kind of sounds like Hyun-soo had like it out for Doyun like a lot. It definitely seems that there's more there than just competitive feelings. I feel like we don't know the whole story. At least I hope so, because I really don't want to think that our villain is that petty. But
I'm on the side so far, at least, that he's just a petty expletive. Like, I mean, it could just be because, like you said, we haven't been introduced to any better reason. Yeah. So far he just seems like completely, just selfish and competitive. But yeah, I guess we'll find out. So here's, go ahead, sorry.
I was thinking back to the first interaction between the two of them, and Doyun was just like, kind of like he's like really rude to him. And then several chapters later, he's like, man, what did I ever do to that guy? And I'm like, do you not remember her? Like, are you that oblivious?
Yeah, I think he is. I really think he is. And we know, by the way, Doyun mentions, this is something that Ji-eon picks up on, that they both have family issues. Doyun clearly, he mentions in the film, the early film that he did, he says, I don't like my acting in it because I wasn't acting. I was just pouring my heart out. And it was where, and particularly in the scene with his dad. So we know, and she's like, you have daddy issues, which I thought was so perceptive of her. So let's assume, I don't know what Doyun's background is, but let's assume he also does not have a reason that he doesn't have social skills is because of poor parenting or lack of parenting. So, we'll find out about that.
It kind of feels like his manager has raised him, which, side note, I love that manager. He's right. Like, if I had to pick a favorite character, it'd be the manager and then the cockroach. So.
Oh, I have a fun thing. That the manager reminded me of like Gyu from Midnight Poppyland, because he's like reliable and dependable.
Yes, I was thinking that too. Like I remember reading it and I'm like, this feels familiar.
Yeah. It's funny because I'm reading Lore Olympus, and Eros reminds me of Quincy. Both like very flamboyant, dramatic character, loving, caring, generous. So yeah, but yeah, it's like people's personalities. So okay, so we'll see what happens with Hyun-soo and Hyun-soo and Doyun. But here's another person that I'm not sure if she is a villain or not. 𝗙cie. No, wait, Vanessa wrong. It was different. 𝗙cie. Okay. Yeah. So she's the daughter of some massive like conglomerate, and she's also the president of, I think she's the president of Ohu Entertainment, right? Which is the agency.
But it's not the agency that Doyun and Hyun-soo are assigned to. It's a competitive one, from what I understand, if I'm understanding it.
Yeah, sorry, you're right. She's not the president of that. She's right. So she's in the entertainment industry. She's known for being a serial dater. She chews people up, spits them out alive. And she apparently like develops talent as well. But I think kind of also at the same time toying around with them romantically. That's the impression I got. So she's had like Hyun-soo stick around with her for a while, and everyone thought that they were like serious. But Doyun was actually correct. He's like, she doesn't actually date anybody. She just plays with them. And she just dumped him. So I'm trying to figure out what her deal is, because the last chapter, that just happened, right? She mentions a throwaway line. She said a couple chapters earlier, she's like, oh, I want someone, I have someone special in my heart, and I want someone who will devote all their attention to me, who won't think of anyone else. And I right away was like, who are you thinking of? And then
sounds healthy.
What?
I said that sounds unhealthy.
Unhealthy for sure, yes. And then anyway, this last chapter, I don't know if you want to say like what exactly happened, but basically, Ji-eon sees pictures of a certain person fall out of her bag. So it seems like she's obsessed with a person, and we're like, oh, okay.
I have a theory. I theorize that Doyun is the one that got away, or the one that never got trapped in by her charms, or her, like he was one that she really wanted to get and she couldn't. And now she's just trying to figure out a way, because we are getting a little bit into spoiler territory, but she basically tells Han-soo, like, if you mess with him, you're done. I am coming at you. So that, I do think that there is a little bit of history there. I don't know what kind of history yet, which is, I'm intrigued though. So that's the author has done it well there. I am definitely intrigued about the redhead that is intimidating, but then like really sweet to Ji-eon at the same time.
Yeah, so that's why I'm a little baffled by, because she is a total, like, she's very, very nasty to everyone around her. She acts entitled, she acts very self-centered, she doesn't seem to care about anyone around her, she plays with people's hearts, right? And yeah, on the other hand, though, she was really nice to Ji-eon, right? She spilled coffee on her, she was like, that's fine, whatever, and she gives her a scarf. So like, I'm trying to figure out, is she a villain or not?
I have a diagnosis, or at that one. I think in the industry, she has a personality or a survival mode. And then when it comes to people outside of the industry, she gets to be hopefully more of her genuine self, which is an abrasive, but then also kind of, I would think, kind of a kind woman, but just comes off abrasive a bit. So I think she's got like a way she acts as a survival way in the industry, because there's a lot of themes about like the atmosphere in the industry in this particular story. And I think she has just a way to handle people when she's at work. And then in her daily life, if she was outside of that industry, I think she would be a different way.
Yeah, that makes sense, because I don't know if you remember the interaction with her family, and her father and her brothers, they were very, very dismissive of her. So in that kind of environment, she probably had to be extremely tough to survive and also to get ahead.
Yeah, I'm just saying those character designs of that family were not flattering. Like, you just look at the picture and you're like, oh, these judgmental people, they think they're better than her, but just look in the mirror, bud.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, can we appreciate, I happen to like, just Doyun is so pretty. He's such a pretty boy.
The pretty people in this one, now if you look in the comments, there's always people simping. But there's like a huge part of the fandom that is like simping hard for eye bags, and I'm sorry, I don't see it.
He's nice, he's okay, but yeah.
I mean, he got eye bags. Him and Lauren Sinclair need a nap.
Right. Oh, he's hilarious with his, also like, that's another thing, the realistic part about like people's unhealthy habits. I loved it when she comes home and she was like, I'm so overwhelmed, my house stinks, my house is a mess, and I can't do anything about it because I'm so freaking busy. And I was like, girl, I feel you. Like those years that I was working, my house was a wreck. I'm not joking. My house was disgusting, at least for me. I have very high standards, but it was probably like below average. And also,
yeah,
because I could not deal with it. And my husband, bless his heart, had ADD and couldn't deal with it either. So it was like so realistic, because, oh my gosh, and like Webtoons, like nobody ever does laundry. Nobody ever like does the chores and sweeps and mops and does the dishes. And like, that's like such a big part of daily life. And I was like, yes. And then Doyun comes in and he's like, this is disgusting, which is also a natural reaction. And I was just so happy to see it. And how did I get onto this tangent, was that 𝗪 is someone who doesn't take care of he doesn't have good sleep habits. He works in the middle of the night and he like doesn't sleep enough. And that's also something super realistic. A lot of people have very bad sleep habits and like stay up too late or whatever. And I just love seeing this like grime, the grimy side of life, like the flaws that we all have.
Yeah. And I think that's another theme in the story, is a bit of realism. that comes in with the character designs, with the eye bags, and just also the settings of the rooms and the trash and the cockroach and the bags of laundry. And then also the realism of when you're under that kind of pressure, it has retributions on your mental health. And we see that in Doyun when has so much anxiety that he's had panic attacks for years. There's hinted that there's a reason for these panic attacks.
Right.
And we don't know that
and
story.
that somebody has something to do with it.
Yes. And we haven't gotten to that part of the story yet, but I like the realism, and I like the struggle of, you think, oh wow, that's a lot of, like, Ji-eon, when she's saving up for money, you're like, oh, that's a lot of money, but she's actually living frugally. She's not like, I read some of these webtoons, and I'm not going to name names, but like, I'm like, you don't have a job, you really don't do that much, yet you're always going out to places. Where is the money coming from? How, like,
I think I know what you're talking about, but yeah.
Oh, there's one character, she buys copious amounts of makeup. She's always going out to eat. She's always got fancy clothes. And I'm like, you don't really have a job? Yeah. Where is the money coming from?
Thank you. Yes, yes.
Excuse me.
Yes, I heard that. Yes. Like, rich parents, I don't know, because the apartment you're living in is very expensive.
I mean, I don't understand. But like with Ji-eon, now you said that she's sending the money to her mom, and that's what I thought too. But when I reread it, there's at one point where she checks her bank
account, right?
And I'm like, okay, so she does have access to it, because initially I was really nervous because I was like, ooh, mom's not saving that money.
Yeah, so that's another thing. So mom, I don't know, because she definitely sends her money. Like, you see in the text messages, she sends her money. So maybe she's sending her some and then saving the rest. But I am so nervous about her mom, because her mom, that's comes up. She's like, she sends her money. She's like, I'm working hard, and her daughter, and at some point she tries to reach out for her. She complains like, I'm overwhelmed. And the mom has no sympathy for her. She's just like, you have to keep on working. And she doesn't ever call her. She doesn't ever send, say, I love you. She doesn't send her anything. I am nervous that the mom is like some kind of abusive user person, narcissist, yeah. I think.
There's a character like this in the To Love Your Enemy, which I don't know if you read that one, but
I read it. I read, like, I don't know, 30 chapters, and I haven't read it since.
Yeah, no, I've read it on and off. I haven't like super kept up it, but there is this small arc where the character's mother comes back into her life, and the character's mother is very childish, and it's definitely not the mom type that they should be, and kind of takes advantage of the daughter. So I'm kind of getting those same vibes. I don't know what the living situation is here, because obviously she's not living with her mother. I don't know where her mother is living. I do think she sends her mom money. I don't think she sends her all of it, because she can access the bank balance apparently. So I don't know exactly how that's working out, but I do think that the mother is going to disappoint, take advantage, something of the sort. And Ji-eon is going to be left with this thing. When you have goals and you have ambitions and you're working for something, and for Ji-eon, that's her mother, that's her life, that's her goal.
That's all she wants. She says she just wants an apartment for.
Yeah, that's all she's working for. And I'm scared for when the penny drops and the floor falls out from under her, and this future that she's been working for is not shared by this person that she cares so much about. Like, they don't have the same value on it that she does. And I think she's going to be really hurt. And I'm not looking forward to that happening, because she is a genuine person from that aspect. And I don't think she's foolish. She's aware that her mother isn't being kind. You know how some people, they'll just look past no matter what a family member says that to them. I know a lot of people in my own life where they would not take it from any other person, but because it's their parent or their sibling, they'll take it because that's their family. It's somebody you should never hear that from, but it's family. So she's not stuck in that where she just bypasses all the cruel things that her mother says to her. She's aware of them and she's not cool with them, but she doesn't seem to care about them at the same time. Like, at the same time, she's like, but at the end of the day, it's my mom. That seems to be her attitude.
I think she's still got the wool over her eyes at this point. And I agree with you. I think that there's going to come a breaking point, and she's going to, like, everything's going to shatter for her. And I do think at that point, she might have a connection with Doyun, and maybe he'll open up about his family and they'll share that together.
Yeah.
So we only have a couple minutes left, but do you want to talk about themes or predictions for what will happen?
Oh boy. Okay. Without getting too much into spoiler territory, I do not have any predictions on the romance side of things. At this point, I feel more, I know she's still got a kind of a crush on one of them, and then another one has a crush on her, but it's not reciprocated. I'm hoping for more friend angles at this point, because that's what it feels like to me, and that feels like the healthiest point of it too. I think she's got way too much in her life to deal with a relationship. Not to mention, it's way more entertaining when she's just controlling people with Minji. So I don't feel like she could do that with good conscience if it was her boyfriend. And I don't think anybody in this character has either the time or the mental maturity to be in a relationship. Yeah. So at this point, I'm just enjoying watching the dance. I'm just enjoying watching the chaos unfurl. And I definitely think there's going to be more agency drama. And I do think that our lead, Ji-eon, she has a very true sense of justice. So if something does happen to Doyun that she's not gonna like, she's like, oh, you can't walk on him like that. I do think she's gonna be the knight in shining armor of this story. I do think she's gonna be the one to come to the rescue, and I don't know if she'll use Minji or not and be like, hey, run him over. Like, I don't know. But that's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping for friendships, and I'm hoping for Ji-eon to be the true knight of this story is what my hopes are.
Yeah, so I totally see Ji-eon being the true knight. And okay, so as I was listening to it, I was finding myself having a very interesting reaction, because normally I'm like, I guess normally I'm totally on board with the like work on yourself and develop yourself and you know, before you get into a relationship. But there's a big part of me, like I was 20 when I married my husband, and my husband was 27, but right. And Yoel was 27, but we both had issues, I would say, when we came in. And, you know, our issues caused us problems in our relationship. But I mean, there's an element to this that, you know, I don't believe in regrets anyway. And like everyone, but when you look back on your life, like I say, like I wouldn't choose it any other way. And I feel like if I had waited a couple of years, yes, certain things would have been easier, maybe. But we both developed within the relationship. And yeah, it did cause us troubles, I guess, but we were able to swing it. So like, I feel like with particularly with Doyun and Ji-eon, I don't actually think that they need to hold off before getting into a relationship, because I feel like they could work on it together. And 100%, like they'll have issues from their irrespective, you know, issues, but I don't know. I just don't feel like you have to wait until you're perfect, because you're never going to be perfect, because you're a human being. And I don't know, maybe this also maybe just be because I'm the kind of person who doesn't regret anything in life. I don't believe in regrets. I don't believe in wishing things had been different. So like when I look back on my life, I would never want to erase 5 years of my life, of my marriage, and say, oh, I'd rather have gotten married at 25. I would have been more mature. I would have been more financially stable. I would have had a better, you know, my education done. Yeah, it's true. But like, so it could be that my personal perspective is also, you know, making me think this way.
Yeah, but I see what you're saying though. A lot of growth can happen in relationships too. I mean, I was 16 when I started dating my now husband. And of course, I was not mentally mature enough to be in a relationship at that point. And same thing, like if I could go back at that point, I was mega depressed and had a lot of personal issues. And I definitely think our relationship would have been easier if we would have waited until I was out of that part of my life. But at the same point, I feel like he was also a part of my recovery. And I don't know if I would have been in the same place had we not started when we did. And I can't say, I mean, it's worked out. I'm very happily married. We have a home. Like I wouldn't change anything for the world. I have the best guy. I love him to pieces. So I can't really regret, I guess, same thing as you. I can't really regret that. Or I just hate that I hate that happened to me. I hate that was my life. But at the same time, it made me who I am today. So can I really hate it? Like, I mean, you could go into that discussion for a while. But as it applies to Ji-eon and Doyun, if I had a favorite pairing, it would be them.
Yes, same here for sure. And Doyun is so cute.
That would be my ship, getting on board that ship. And I think she could help mature him just because she's her realism, like her just like snap out of it, get over yourself attitude, but in a way that's not cruel. So I think she could also be healthy for him if they did choose to go that route. But at the same time, I feel like she could also do that for him if it was also a healthy friendship too.
Right.
But also it is a rom-com. So who are we kidding here? There is going to be some romance. He's already kissed her. Spoilers, that happens very soon. So I don't feel like that's a spoiler. Like there's already some of those feelings there. So
oh yeah, I love his blushes.
oh my goodness. It's just the realization for when he kissed her and then he's like, oh my gosh, I kissed her shoe initially, not her lips. This is all a mistake. I died. Like comedy gold.
It's great.
So
I love
it. Honestly, I won't be furious or anything. But I guess I guess I'll be satisfied no matter which way it goes. Because it does feel natural at this point, as natural as something as this crazy scenario can be. It feels natural as it can be.
A super like a magical doll that controls your movements, but yeah,
it's in that scenario, yeah.
Yeah, we all like. I didn't even question it. I'm like, yeah, sure, magical doll. That's great.
If you had that weird, like your husband though, like you just be like, give him orders through the doll, and he just has to do it.
I bet the doll is going to be destroyed at the end somehow, and like it'll be rendered forfeit.
Want to know about the creation of the doll or how it got hooked to Doyun like it did? Like, do we want to know?
I think it's just a plot device, and that's it. I don't think it's ever going to be explained.
The old hobo who gave it to her. He's a wizard.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be a reference to a magical system. I think it's literally just thrown in there, and you're just supposed to accept it.
Yeah, I've accepted it. The doll controls the story.
Yep. Well, I have to go to the next podcast, but this was so much fun.
Yes, it was good to be back. And if you have not listened to this, read this webtoon, I highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of unexpected laughs, and all the characters pretty much with the, you either love them or you love to hate them. So at this point, I'm still very much enjoying the read.
Yes, totally. So act like you love me on Webtoons. Enjoy. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you so much to my current patrons: Susie, Lady Libris, Lily, Jenny, Haley, Maria, Molly, Veronica, Emily, Joe, Rochelle, Saucy Talcos, Meg, and Rose, Priya, Alexa, Misty, Laura, Joanne, Patty, Jen, Imelda, Esther, I'm watching Guitar's Poppy Seed, Marie, Jen, Emily, Jean, Jen, Erin, D, and Kay. Your support is truly appreciated.